Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Eachine TWIG 115. Yeah, it might fit into that twig category if you call them that, but it's not the twig. You might remember the Racer X twig. This one was reviewed some time ago, and I'll put a card in your type right hand corner so you can look at that review if you'd like to. And I think I have to step back here for a moment. When I first got started in FPV, micros were really largely ignored. You might remember Dave Wood's Picnic Quads, Dr. Benedict Hack, Dr. Ben from Micromotor Warehouse. Those were really two instrumental guys for me that were doing micros as well. And micros have had a strong interest for me dating back to when I first started because they fit in my life pretty well. And then we had Airblade UAV, we had TomoQuads.com, we've got Quattrovolant.com, we've got FlexRC.com, and some others. And then along the lines, some of the companies like Diatone and LDRC and a few others started getting involved in micros as they started to become more popular. And you might see this 115, this Eachine TWIG, as a clone, a copy inspired by. It kind of depends on your point of view. But I feel strongly that, I kind of have to pay homage to all those independent designers that allowed me to experience micros along my path. The one thing I need to make sure that it's clear is this is a review, but I'm also kind of self-identify as a hobbyist because there weren't a lot of these ready to flies my first 2 years. You pretty much had to build everything. You had to cobble together parts and make your own. And now we've got ready to flies or bind and flies like this. But I think that what has happened is we've seen this in the toothpick category as well, where something gets kind of a name recognition for itself, and then we start to see companies try to partner or swipe or cloppy or cone or get inspired by. But in this case, if you take a look at these two, they're really, really similar. And all along this review, I'm going to make comparisons. And that's not unusual because in reviews, we oftentimes make comparisons, and oftentimes I'm asked to compare them in the comment section below in videos. But I think in this case, I'm going to have to highlight the differences. Now, this, of course, is a build. You're going to build it, or you're going to hire someone like Atom Bomb Build and Repair Services to build one for you. So I understand that not everyone is into builds, and ready to flies are a better option for many people. But I also think that once you get this, if you have any problems with this, you need to keep this one in mind. Because you can get this in a lot of different places. You can get it from go to RacerX.com and look at all the places that it's available from. Do FPV, RotorGeeks, Heli-Nation.com. It's available in a couple of different places, and I understand that shipping can be cost prohibitive for some of you in your location. You're not going to pay $40 to have a $25 frame shipped to you, and I think this is under $25. So I get that. So my soapbox, while it might be high now, I'm climbing down off of it ever so slightly. But I just want, as you get into this review video, to understand where I'm coming from. I have a bias. I have a bias for these independent or homebrew frame designers because that's my roots. That's where we had to go as micro lovers, and many of you as well, in order to enjoy micros. We didn't have bind and flies and ready to flies all along. So I'm going to do my best to try to be as neutral as I can during the review and be as objective as I can, but we're also going to be making comparisons. Let's get started. Featuring 1105 5200 kV motors. Originally, it comes with these GemFan 3025 props. These are more than just a year or two old. I switched it out to the HQ 3x2 props. The Flight Controller ESC all-in-one board is the Crazy Bee F4 Pro version 3. It does have the built-in SPI receiver with limited range. It comes with a power switchable VTX from 25 milliwatt to 200 milliwatt. Mine features the Caddx Baby Turtle for HD recording. You can also get it with the Runcam Nano 2, which does not have HD recording capabilities. XT30 for your battery connection. Very basic battery strap. The Racer X TWIG comes with a 3D printed battery mount in several different flavors, and also features quick release and mounting. I added the battery pad. The Caddx Baby Turtle does come with these connectors for changing your settings on the camera. The Eachine TWIG 115 weighs just over 68 grams. The Racer X FPV TWIG weighs just about 68.4 grams. I flew it on this GNB 3S 520 milliamp battery, which brings the weight to just about 110.7 grams. I'm getting just over 114 millimeters motor post to motor post. The bottom plate is 2.5 millimeters thick. It's somewhere in the middle between stiff and not so stiff. The original TWIG bottom plate is about 2 millimeters thick.
back. The stiffness feels to be about the same. The Eachine TWIG does come with an extra set of props, foam pads for your battery mounting, 2 extra long screws, 2 extra soft mounts, a couple extra screws and nylon nuts, a Phillips headed screwdriver, and an Allen key, and a Caddx control board to change the settings on your cameras. It all does fit neatly with props on inside the case. So of course, it's easy on the eyes, and we're going to watch the HD recording on this particular machine. And I should explain why I changed the props. Is one, I didn't think I could get the tune very well done with the old Gem Fan props, and they're aged. We haven't really flown those props effectively in quite a while. And after I've watched back some of my HD footage after tuning this for those HQ 3x2 props, I do think that I have the P value slightly high. And depending upon, you know, your experience, if you have one of these and you're trying to use my tune, which I will show you here in a moment, you may find that you need to increase the D just a little bit, because there is a little bit of a shutter or a prop wash that you can see from time to time in the HD recording. Of course, if you don't have the HD version, you probably won't notice that. That stuff tends to be accentuated with the HD recording. You have to get your tune a little bit tighter, especially in micros, in order to make it as smooth as possible. But it flies reasonably well, and another reason why I changed the props out is I felt like I was kind of missing any sharp turning abilities. The ability to stay close to the tree and make that hard turn, it always felt like I was kind of sliding, like I was on ice or something like that. And I have to, you know, make a more abrupt stick move with more throttle punch in order to get the curve or the line I wanted. I not only felt that the HQ props had better balance, but a better grip and probably better efficiency, because again, you know, Gem Fan props are probably 2+ years old, and these HQ 3x2s just came out. So modern versus old sort of thing. So you have those benefits in these props. And these props are what we were running on the original Racer X FPV Twig as well. So it makes sense that I would like these props better on this machine as well. Let's go ahead and we'll put that PID tune on screen so you can see that. We're going to have about a 2-minute and 37-second flight, I believe, if I wrote the time down correctly. And I am flying it on that GNB 3S 520 milliamp battery. You may find that your flight time goes up if you fly differently. You may find that your flight time goes down if you fly even more aggressively than I do. You know, this racing style tends to be pretty hard on batteries. And also, if you fly kind of a more freestyle where you go up and you're on the 0 throttle and you go back down, you may find that your flight time goes way up. It really can vary heavily. I've seen flight times on machines that I've had with batteries that I'm flying go for 4 minutes where I'm barely getting 2.5 to 3 minutes. So it really varies quite a bit there. This is a view of the FPV view. So this is what you see in the goggles. You can see that you've got your OSD all on the screen, and you've got the HD recording indicator there as well. I always have to show this a little bit. In each video, I try to make the assumption that someone is seeing this equipment for the first time, so I try to include a little bit of that. Here is the sound that you get from the Caddx Turtle, which does have an onboard microphone, and it's not going to be pleasing, so I'm going to take the sound way, way down just to make it tolerable if you want to listen. And then when it goes off screen, when the flying footage goes off screen, you know that the sound's gone away. So if you happen to be muting, then you know when to unmute, and we can come back to finish the review. So the first thing, I think, if you're going to be looking at this, again, I recommend that you take a look at our original Racer X FPV Twig. That's the one that I prefer. That's the one I would recommend. But again, as I said in the beginning or the intro, I do understand why people might want this for cost purposes or building purposes. But the first thing you should do is make note of the fact that the battery pads, foam pads they give you are so thin that your batteries are going to be striking, because you do land on your battery every time these screws. So they use kind of a recessed screw, but they didn't actually recess the carbon, so they still stick up a fair bit. And also note that your USB port sticks up some. So if you use the pad that comes with the kit, you're going to be impacting those two things. I think the worst case scenario is you end up impacting the battery possibly hard enough to cause a fire. Probably not, but in the very unlikely circumstance that you come down real hard, that's possible. But I would be more concerned about damaging your USB port. Oftentimes we don't need those much after initial setup, but at a later time, a new version of Betaflight comes out and you want to try it, you may have problems if you've damaged your USB port. I went ahead and stuck with the stock battery strap, which I really don't care for, but I did try to use it because it does come with the kit. I think they also need to do a better job in securing our motor wires down. I think the probability that they get into the props is relatively low. I just don't like how if they come up off the arms and you go tumbling through a tree or bush, that's just one extra spot a twig can go in, a twig, and get you hung up in that tree so you can't get it back down. So as you see in the original, when Adam built mine for me, he secured the motor wires down using zip ties. Pretty simple thing, but we just don't see RTFs doing that, so that's something you're going to have to take care of yourself. Also, I broke the canopy. You might be able to see it right down here next to the camera. There's a crack right there, and there's also a crack around here, and I used welder adhesive to fix that. I buy this from Amazon. I usually get a 2-pack. And the reason why I like this, it does take a really long time to set up. I think it's a 12-hour setup, but usually I'll do my repair at nighttime and then I go to bed, and then in the morning or at lunch or whenever I'm flying next, I'm set to go. So I like this stuff because it stays pliable. It doesn't get rock hard like crazy glue does. It'll still give a little bit. So if you're flying a tiny hoop sort of plastic frame, you can use this to repair as well. It's really handy in our hobby to have some of this. Also, E6000 is oftentimes used. I prefer this though. I will have a link in the video description down below to where you can buy this on Amazon if you are an Amazon shopper. So I had one crash and it broke the canopy in these two places. Let's take a quick look at that. It does appear from that crash that I did glance off the cement canopy, so that's almost a worst case scenario. The height of that tree that I got tangled up in, I'd have to estimate that as around 9 foot in the air, where I hit those branches and then I, tumbled out of the air, and then I hit the concrete and then tumbled off into the grass. You'll also note that I used the welder adhesive to secure my nuts. I found that these were rotating off or getting loose, and I didn't care for that. I ended up getting low on the thin nylon nuts, and I ended up going to a fatter one. So if you're looking right at the soft mount, you'll notice this one's squished a tiny little bit. And that's something else I didn't care for on this, is they've used soft mounting throughout. We've got one nylon nut here, which should be metal. Typically you want that not only to be metal, but a lock nut if you can. And then we've got soft mounting on up. So we have no real structure retention capabilities here. The boards are used as far as creating the rigidity in the stack, and I don't care for that because that puts extra strain on your canopy, and in this case I think that strain probably caused or would cause additional damage to the canopy, because again, this nylon nut is not going to keep this screw rigid all the way up. It's going to flex and move around, and if you hit anything, it's probably going to damage the canopy in some way. You may even find that these boards become dislodged, like the VTX board here where it doesn't go all the way around the screw. You may find that that pops out. That could also possibly touch your Cadix turtle board down here, and that could create some magic smoke or sadness. So it's something to be aware of, that in this build they didn't do things like I would have done in order to make sure that all the individual boards don't come in contact. They did do a nice job of making sure that the wires that we have from the turtle up to the camera and to the VTX stay out of harm's way. I didn't have any problems with them sneaking out, even when my canopy got real loose. They do use a mixture of different sorts of screws. We've got hex-headed screws here. We've got Phillips screws around the base. We've also got Phillips screws here on the camera. It's a little detail that I don't care for because it's one extra tool you've got to get out, and I tend to screw up the Phillips headed screws when I'm trying to get things tight. You need to have a real good fit. It's not generally a number 2 Phillips, which most households will have a number 2 Phillips. It's something else, something smaller. So it's something I like to bring up and make sure that you're aware of what you're getting. I also think that something I kind of normally do, but I didn't do in this case, maybe it's because I didn't care for the fact that I felt that they were kind of tramping on the original Twig, is they should have also, or you should, if you get one, also secure your battery lead down. I would just run a zip tie right through this area. That way, if you have a battery ejection, that when it tugs on the zip tie and gives you a fighting chance it won't tug off this board. Because if you pull those pads off the board, the opportunity to fix that is relatively low. Also, I didn't have any problems, but I routed my cables out the back here, and you see that there is a slight possibility that you can get this cable into the prop view. I didn't have any problems with it. I just routed them through this hole out the back, and then I have that longer battery that I showed you in the quick roll mounted through here, and I didn't have any strikes, or at least any strikes that I noted in any of my flights, and it doesn't appear to be damaged. Also, your SD card goes in right here on the Caddx Baby Turtle board, and that is this board right across the front, and then you have your button. Where'd it go? Our recording button to start and stop your recordings right over here. Mine came pre-flashed. Sorry, I had the motor blocking that. That's your button to start. That's your button to start and stop recordings. Mine came pre-flashed or preset up to auto record. So when you plug in your battery, it will record. It does also save your recording if you just unplug the battery. So depending upon whether you want to use that button to start or stop, or just unplug your battery, that's kind of up to you. I didn't have any problems when I forgot to stop the recording and unplugging the battery, because it only loses like the last 2 seconds or maybe 3 seconds. So if you land in your lap by chance and you quickly unplug, you could miss a little bit of your landing flight footage, but you wouldn't miss much else. So that is a nice improvement over other HD FPV camera recording options that we've had, years gone past. Your camera is fairly well protected. You'll note that the top and bottom of the camera edges are kind of exposed, so if you do center a tree, this canopy is not going to give you complete protection, but if you do center a tree, I would also expect this canopy to break and to possibly have some camera damage. Possibly if you shove the camera, if you hit really hard, if you're going plaid and you smoke a tree or a pole or something that can get right between the motors, which is relatively rare. I mean, it's got to fit between there, but if it does happen that you go plaid, like I said, and you hit that and you shatter this little housing that's holding these screws, the camera could then hit the VTX board or possibly other components and cause damage. But that's kind of the case in most of these. And the one reason I bring that up is I've had a lot more flights and a lot more crashes with this one, and I haven't had any issues. Also, if you're looking at the original Twig and you want more camera angle, for me, this satisfied me, but they also have a different canopy that you can get that has additional camera angle. I believe you can get that from Phoenix 3D, Chris Griffin over there. So a little added advertising and bonus information about the original Twig. I should go back to these motors. I was a bit concerned when I'd seen this one advertised that this product would have yet another motor pattern, but I'm happy to report it's just got a 9x9 motor pattern. Now, right around here, yeah, that looks like that's got some sort of oil or something right through here. Can you see that? It's kind of glossy and it's moving around as I kind of scrape at it. I don't know what that is. That could be just manufacturing oil from the screws. It originally caught my attention because I thought the frame was cracking because it kind of looked that way. And as I got to fussing with it over time, I noticed that it didn't crack, or it wasn't cracking. It was just some sort of liquid or oil on there. We should also take a look at the carbon weave. I should have done that in the quick roll, but I forgot to do it. Let's get them both facing forward here so we have an equal opportunity to look at the carbon weaves. You could see the original Twig has a much smaller, tighter weave, and we have a much larger weave on the Eachine Twig. You can also see the pattern as far as the frame design. Something else that I'm noting here that I'd failed to mention previously is the gap that you have around your USB port. The gap on the Eachine Twig is quite small. It's a little bit more on the top side. I can get my little 1mm hex head, or this is actually 1.5 hex head in here, but nowhere near down there. Hopefully that's a point of reference for you. So if this canopy does shift around and moves front to back especially, you may find here that you get some USB damage, whereas on the original we have a much bigger gap around here, and so if you would happen to get any shifting, USB port would have to move a long ways in order to be damaged. That's my review of the Eachine TWIG 115, and let me give you one last reminder before we go where this came from. RacerXFPV.com. Check them out. Maybe build one of your own, or if you have any problems with this frame or this canopy like I did, maybe you go to RacerXFPV.com and you get yourself a true Twig. And hit up Chris Griffin over at Phoenix 3D for all your printing needs. Quality prints at a reasonable price. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.